So does the United States government actually know who the creator of Bitcoin is and the origin of the Bitcoin? Do they have a story? Do they have actually an actual case to identify who created Bitcoin and how it's going to play out in this new executive administration with the Bitcoin reserve? Well, let's talk about it in this video and break it down, because there's some key elements that a lot of people have missed. You know, there was a court case called Climman versus Wright. It was back in 2018. It was a massive set of litigation that upheld that Craig Wright was okay. The Court of Appeal, he was the rightful holder and owner and controller over all the Satoshi era coins. He paid a small $150 million in a amount to a shell company that his two ex-wives held, and also Ira Climman. But the controlling over the Satoshi era coins, the jury determined that it was his. Then it went up on appeal, and the court determined that on appeal, there was only the origins of Bitcoin were determined. And that's in the first line of the appeal. It's a Kleiman v. Wright, 11th Circuit. Origins of Bitcoin are going to be determined in this case. The origins of Bitcoin. And it was determined that Craig Wright, had control over all the Satoshi era coins. There's some fascinating things that happened in the case, and it kind of played out in the Climman case later, where Craig Wright was called in and sanctioned during the case about not producing wallet addresses. And in those wallet addresses, it was like 100,000 wallet era addresses in the Satoshi coins that were talked about at that point. And in those wallet addresses, he actually did produce those. And it was called there was a word. It was called, the Courier, like the bonded courier. That's what it was. And the bonded courier had all the wallet addresses. Well, he did show up. Now, all the media will tell you that it didn't show up and Craig got sanctioned. Well, that got appealed. The magistrate's ruling on that was appealed in Climman, and it got overturned. Craig did not have to pay the sanctions on that. And those bonded courier wallet addresses did show up, and that was the Shatters addresses with like 100,000 wallet addresses from the Satoshi era coins. And that's how we know the Satoshi era coin wallet addresses, from that case right there. Now, after that, a lot of things had happened, including, when Miller had made a ruling that Craig had to pay in the COPA hearing, after Craig had lost that hearing and found he wasn't Satoshi Nakamoto, and he was ordered to pay all the fines to COPA. It's saying, basically the attorney fees and all the costs. It was something like 50. It was a huge amount of money. I don't remember the amount. I think it was like 30 to 50 million. But at the same time, wallet addresses had moved. Those wallet addresses had also moved at the same time, selling coins. It was like 2,000 BTC only sold, moved off to another address, which was very close to the same amount that Craig was ordered to pay by Judge Miller in that case. Then they had the disqualification of Miller, which happened, where I filed in a declaration. So what happened was that people in the space were like saying, you know what, this guy needs to be investigated. Judge Miller and Judge Arnold. Looks like a lot of corruption, because Tufty David Pierce had come on my show and talked about how he met with Judge Miller at events, and they had multiple events, and they talked about the case at events. They talked about Adam Back, who was a board member of COPA. That's on the record on some videos I have when I had David Pierce on my show. Then shortly thereafter, I said, Scott and had put together a change.org petition to cause investigation of the case, look into the whole matter. And as he was up there, like 2 days later, David Pierce comes on a show I was having on X, and he says, take that down right now, Scott. You need to remove that off the internet. Scott says, what for? What's it about? We want to get some investigation. We want to get some answers. You take it down or else. He said, or else, and he made some threats. Well, 2 days later, it got taken down. Shortly thereafter, we looked into Truth, Crypto Rebel. He did most of the research. He looked into when he found out that Sloppy Jack Dorsey, the guy who had Twitter forfeited from him for First Amendment violations, Sloppy Jack Dorsey was actually the decision maker over at change.org. And he was a controlling party. Of course, the founder of COPA, opposing Craig, right? He's a decision maker at change.org. Found that out. They pulled that off the internet. At that point, I had enough, and I wrote up an affidavit, and I said, you know what? I'm going to testify in this case. So I wrote up a detailed affidavit, which have I shared it on this on a video or not? I don't know if I have, but I should probably do a video walking people through it. It's very detailed, and I have all the links to all the conversations I had with Mr. Pierce, all the conversations, all the reporting that I did on the trial, the COPA trial, the background and the whole thing, and then the disqualification of Judge Miller from my affidavit. So that went in. It was like a 13-page, 10-page affidavit with exhibits. It had the change.org petition that got removed. It had the Jack Dorsey decision maker part attached as Exhibit B. That was in there. And that goes in on the day that Craig Wright's going to be sentenced to jail. He was coming in for contempt. It was contempt on an OSC. He had to be ordered. The day or two before, Craig Wright files my affidavit into the case. Boom. With the motion to disqualify Miller, puts everything on hold. Judge Miller was all dressed up in a clown suit and a costume, and the attorney, Justin Hoff, he was up there, a barrister. He was up there as well in a costume, and he had the makeup on, and the whole courtroom was going wild. It was hot, packed full of people. Artie Van Pelt and everybody was there, and David Pierce, and they were all cheering, ready to break piñatas on the wall and taking Craig away in handcuffs. Craig Wright doesn't show up. He ghosted the whole thing. It was like the ultimate freaking ghost middle finger move, And at the same time, he files the disqualification on Miller, my affidavit saying, Judge Miller, you're biased, you're prejudiced, not because I said, but because all these 700 people said on the internet who signed this petition to get you investigated. And then Jack Dorsey, the founder of COPA, he got it removed, most likely. I mean, he's the decision maker over there off the internet, and David Pierce. So that's all happening. And Craig Wright then shows up a few days later, and Judge Miller makes a long ruling, including on my affidavit of the disqualification, that he was biased, showing that he was biased, and he rules on his own disqualification. That right there just completely set the case out. It was a nut case at that point. Judge Mudd, it was just a fake case at that point. I mean, all he had to do was say, look, I'm going to send this over to another judge next door. Judge, please rule on my disqualification. Say to everybody that it's no good. Say I'm not biased, please. He doesn't do that. No, his ego was too big. He acted as King Charles, the third. And he says, I'm the king. I rule on what I want to do. Nobody goes past me. That's what he did. At that point, the judgment is void. It's void. It's just a fake judgment now, because you can't rule on your own disqualification, period. You're out of the case. You're not the judge anymore until that's determined by another judge. So the judgment's sitting there void. Somebody wanted to attack that judgment, probably could, motion to set aside a void judgment. I mean, probably a fake judgment. How would COPA like that? Should maybe get some attorneys in there to freaking file some motions to set aside and vacate that fake judgment that Judge Mudd in there. Anyways, that's what happened. So just kind of revisiting all the facts on this interesting matter, and the from the Climman to the COPA case to now the steganography. The cool thing about my buddy Alex Havel out there in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, just uncovering the steganography. So, there's a lot of things that have been talked about. It's just such a cool and funny and interesting rabbit hole to go down with the Satoshi story. And these are just things that happen. Notice I didn't tell you that, dude, do your own research, make up a decision for yourself, and you can decide, because the court said Craig Wright wasn't Satoshi Nakamoto. That's pretty compelling. That's pretty strong. But these are other material facts out of the internet that you could also research and find and make a decision for yourself. So just don't buy the mainstream narrative that Jack Dorsey tells you, because Sloppy Jack got his company forfeited from him on a sealed indictment. He doesn't want you to know that. Yeah. And he also doesn't want you to know that he's a decision maker at change.org, and he has controlling interest to take that petition down and censor people. Well, he has a pattern in censorship. He's got a PhD in censorship, according to the U.S. government. That's his expertise, Sloppy Jack. So that's coming at you right now. My name is Gavin Mehl. I wanted to just get that out there and just kind of a recap on the excitement over the last year. I mean, that's really been a little more than that, but the story is, it seems like it's ever evolving. It's like, when's it going to end? I don't know. I don't think it's over yet. I think there's going to be one more chapter. It's going to be next year sometime. And I believe there will be one more chapter that's already time locked. Time locked chapter, huh? And it's already in there. It's going to be revealed in stone. There's no way around it. But we'll see what that chapter is. So that's my little report and update on the Satoshi identity trial, the COPA, from Climman to COPA. If you like this video at the ones, be sure to subscribe. A lot more to come. This is Gavin Mehl. I'll see you at the top.